Under a low light, the clerk bent over his book and traced a thin black line through another entry. Fatima al-Rashid. 14. Status, pending. The quill hissed against scraped parchment. The ink had not set when the first boots hit the stones outside. Commands bit the air. A jug rolled and burst. Prayer beads scattered like spilled seeds. The girl flattened herself against a lime-washed wall, trying to be small. Her mother's voice broke into raw, animal sound as soldiers pushed through the door. The clerk did not raise his head. His finger slid down a column he had compiled weeks earlier: height acceptable, family name advantageous, signs of fertility favorable, and with a small stroke he moved Fatima from pending to processed. A decision made long before arrows lifted over the battlements, before a husband bled out on the gate, before a mother's whispered pleas. All morning the same scene unfolded in perfect rhythm across the city: doors splintering, names called, bodies directed toward striped tents where assignments were issued with the calm of rationing flour. The pen did not pause. Another line. Another future turned into ink. To understand how an empire turned rape into policy and bloodlines into trophies, you have to jump 8 centuries forward to a fluorescent lab where a technician frowned at a screen. Marcus Chen had mailed his saliva because a podcast ad promised stories in the spit, maybe a trace of Vikings, a sliver of Italy. What came back made the tech ask for a second tube. The Y chromosome signature was unmistakable, the so-called star cluster tied in papers to one man who died in the 1200s. Marcus wasn't rare. He was one of roughly 16 million living men with that marker. 16 million, more than entire nations, each a point in a living map of conquest. At another terminal, Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation, stared at models she'd refined for 15 years and wished the math were wrong. One man with many wives could not seed that many lines by chance. Even 100 partners, even perfect survival, the graphs still refused. The curves only made sense under a darker assumption: assaults were not incidental to war, they were an organized system that repeated in waves, across districts, across generations. She had a slide she never showed at conferences. It translated those tidy curves into what they meant. Each living carrier implied hundreds of women violated up the tree. The pattern in the DNA mirrored old roads, old tax regions, old administrative zones. The genes flowed where ledgers once ruled. A colleague's report from burial pits in Central Asia, rows of young women, pattern trauma, same years, fit the model too closely to ignore. Another email pinged. Am I really related to Genghis Khan? So cool. She hovered over the keyboard, wondering how to tell a stranger that his fun result was a scar that never healed. The system did not begin at the gates. Long before a siege, a man moved through the Damascus market pretending to haggle. He watched daughters, not dates. His handler wanted specifics: 12 to 20, clear skin, strong hips, no signs of wasting, mothers who birthed many and kept many alive. He listened in bathhouses where women spoke freely. He made friends with midwives who knew every womb in a neighborhood. He asked matchmakers about lineages and noted twins in a family as if marking fat cattle. He counted daughters at wells and doorways and schools. He was not alone. The same quiet harvest unfolded in Baghdad, Bokhara, Samarkand, places that had never heard the word Mongol. At dusk he met others in a dried fruit warehouse where the rustle of apricots hid the scribble of pens, names, years, addresses, branches of family trees, maps shaded for yield. They ranked prospects: beauty, proven fertility in the mother's line, age within the empire's window, bonuses for prestigious blood to freshen the stock. They even tracked cycles from Bath gossip, twins in bloodlines, and girls who'd been raising 6 or 7 siblings since small. 2 years passed between this spy's list and the arrival of horsemen. 2 years of birthdays, betrothals, and songs, while a ledger 1,000 miles away waited for a checkmark. When the armies came, sorting followed the script. In the shaper a wooden platform rose like a livestock block, which is what it was. The clerk sat with his portable desk and open book while guards arranged lines. First cut, age. Teeth pried open, jawlines touched, bones red by feel. Small ones under 11 went to holding pens. Over 25 to a separate fate. Intense, women who had bargained away their own children's safety for survival performed intimate checks and spoke their findings to scribes: pregnant, diseased, intact, injured, each word falling into a column that defined a road. Virgins marked officer, non-virgins general use, those with sickness dispose. Sisters were pulled apart on purpose. The pretty one sent to upper ranks, the plainer one to barracks or worse, so that no pair could stiffen the other's spine. Hips measured to forecast births, breasts assessed for milk, faces read for heritage, even the way a girl walked judged for strength. A shout behind a girl tested her nerve. Too much cowering meant frail. Too much fire meant trouble. They wanted bodies that would obey and survive. They ranked beauty. They devised a special mark for lines that had twins. They developed shorthand for it all, small symbols for virgin, proven, third class, punishment, so the book filled with cruel hieroglyphs. The platform operated 3 days without a pause. By sunset, 3,000 entries. Quota exceeded by 12%. Commendation noted. Inside the offices, the ledgers multiplied. Bokhara, 1221, shelves of calfskin volumes, columns for name, age, date, assessment, destination, current pregnancy, living issue. A girl, Yasmin of Merv, was logged at exactly 2 hours after sunrise. The next entry came 6 minutes later. 6 minutes spacing all morning, as if the clock itself had been trained to keep pace with suffering. Monthly quotas appeared: 30 pregnancies in a modest district, 50 in a large one. Administrators who exceeded targets earned first pick from the next convoy, those who fell short were punished. Reports tracked processing time from capture to first assault like a factory learning to shave seconds off a line. Women were traded between regions and appeared in serial ledgers like cargo on a route. Punishment schedules sat in a separate section: food cuts, isolation, assignment to the military brothel, the last a sentence that broke even the defiant. The books listed non-productive with subtypes: miscarriage, stillbirth, barren, because even failure had categories. At quarter's end, numbers rolled up: over 40,000 women in system, 8,000 pregnancies confirmed, 6,000 live births projected, suggestions appended for efficiency. Babies were numbered before they were named. Some never would be. Assault did not wait for stone walls. It moved on wagons. A caravan 3 miles long rolled with its center sealed under canvas. The sound within was human. A clerk rode alongside and updated figures every 6 hours: wagon 4, 12 occupants, 3 pregnant, 1 dead en route; wagon 7, 15 occupants, 5 past the preferred age, recommend transfer at next post. These were not stopgaps. Stone foundations for medical tents and drainage at way stations show the infrastructure of permanence. Birthing stools, cutting tools, jars of herbs known to steady a womb or empty it. This was a traveling clinic built for rape. Guards trained as handlers learned feeding schedules that maintained fertility but not strength, pressure points that disabled without damaging reproductive organs, rotations that prevented solidarity. There were punishment wagons with small compartments, restraints, and drainage channels. At night, soldiers arrived in shifts set by rank. Letters between units bragged of reducing time from capture to productivity from 3 days to 36 hours. Pregnant women received better rations only while pregnant. After birth their portions fell back to thin survival. Water was measured to the cup, withheld as discipline. Children aged 2 to 5 turned up in small burial grounds along these routes, kept alive long enough to be weaned, then shipped away to training or to graves when they did not fit the plan. The book recorded even those separations: child 891, male, estimated 3 years, assigned to Karakoram, mother extremely distressed, increased surveillance. The worst cruelty did not always break bone. It erased names. A woman stood at roll call and tried to answer the simplest question. What is your name? Months earlier she would have said it with pride, then recited her father's, then her grandfather's. Now she croaked, 27, the number tattooed in blue inside her wrist. The office had studied this, too. Notes from Bokhara tracked the pattern. In week 1, women flinched at numbers. By week 4 they hesitated when called by their own names. By week 12 they looked puzzled when a birth name surfaced. By week 24 many could not recall it at all. They replaced given names with functions: breeder, officer 3rd rank, scribe stock, general use. Speaking birth tongues drew punishment. A lullaby in Turkish could cost you your child. New arrivals who whispered each other's names starved entire wagons by accident, until survival taught them to police one another's speech. Some tried to keep names alive in thought, a quiet roll of ancestry at dawn, but even inner language unraveled under the daily grind. One woman pushed from her throat, "My name is," and then corrected herself, "My name was," because grammar itself had learned the loss. Doctors served the machine. An imperial physician's notebook, its pages brown with age, records, treatments, with the calm of a recipe. Irregular bleeding, managed, with mercury. Convulsions, expected, conception achieved, within 2 moons. Black cohosh given to spur ovulation. Pomegranate 4, thickening. Doses altered by ethnicity after experience. Young bodies, prepared, with carved stones to make later penetration easier, many could not walk for weeks after. They timed assaults to cycles charted on lunar calendars to maximize conception. They sketched restraints, not for patients' comfort but for compliance during procedures. Morning brought bitter drafts that burned throats yet raised pregnancy rates beyond 70%. Diets were weaponized, starvation to stop cycles, carefully timed refeeding to provoke multiple ovulations and raise the odds of twins. Letters between clinics traded innovations, a tea to increase milk, a salve to close tears fast so a woman could return to use, a crude urine grain test to guess pregnancy. When bodies failed to conceive after a set number of months, status terminated. The archaeology near several facilities holds the rest of that sentence. Trenches of women cut open for study, knowledge wrung from living tissue. Doctors logged dissociation in clinical notes, subjects who stopped responding, who stared through the tent cloth, who floated somewhere beyond pain. He called it a side effect. It was survival. Payment ran on flesh. In the command tent, a paymaster read from a board while a chest creaked open. For breaching a gate, extra rations and an earlier place in the queue. For holding a bridge, first access to a higher tier of women. Wooden tokens clacked in soldiers' hands, men traded slots like gamblers. Tables in the ledgers converted categories, officer premium, general, punishment, into prices, silver for low rank, horses for high. Morale disbursements appeared as a column in quarterly returns. The phrase meant women distributed to keep units from breaking. Shortfalls after hard campaigns raised prices, scarcity made bodies dearer, commanders promised fresh supply to quiet complaints. A sharper cruelty followed, quarters credited units not just for kills but for pregnancies recorded among their stock. More pregnancies meant better fodder, warmer winter housing, earlier leave. The newborn cry became a tally in a logistics sheet. One archer's journal folded the truth into 10 words: "We took the hill. They paid us well. I ride again." When a body would not serve, the line at dawn divided into 3. Those who miscarried too often. Those who never conceived. Those whose infants died. Each line fed a different wagon. Slave traders arrived with bags of silver for disposals every 3 months. Young women sold to fields, mines, or brothels from Delhi to Damascus. The damaged and the old went to pits. Administrators had set a number, after 6 failed tries, approved for disposal. Some women disappeared not for failure but for the wrong success: too many daughters, sons with clubbed feet, hair falling out, mind slow. Infants were sorted separately in the morning, tiny bodies heaped in a cart and rolled away while mothers thrashed in chains. Women who had fought hardest, the ones who strangled their own newborns rather than hand them to the machine, the ones who tried to poison stew pots to save others, were reserved for public example. Stakes. Days of dying while the rest were made to watch. Ledgers reduced this to percentages, 12% attrition per quarter. The cost of keeping numbers high. Even those born alive faced inspection for fitness. In a damp tent, an assessor turned a newborn's head in his palm and measured bone with calipers. One twin's eyefold and cheekbones earned a mark that sent him to a nursery for future training. The other twin's rounder eyes and narrow nose earned a mark that sent him into a small wagon. The mother understood enough words to collapse. Letters stamped babies before they could focus. M for Mongol acceptable, P for Persian dominant, C for Chinese, T for Turkic, and those letters became destiny. Yearly rechecks culled boys who developed wrong. Some children were kept for their minds, half this, half that, quick with languages, useful to run offices and treaties for the empire that killed their siblings for cheekbones. Mothers were taught to keep their faces still. A visible grief could mark a child as weak blood. Names were withheld. Numbers stuck until acceptance. Many children never earned a name at all. One facility's books give the funnel in plain totals. Of 10,000 births, 6,000 cleared first inspection, 4,000 lived to 5, 2,500 reached grown years. Bedrock for an army and a bureaucracy. Waste for graves. Spades have turned up the rest. In 1996, outside Merv, an organized trench came to light. 300 women in ordered rows, mostly young, the same wounds repeated across skeletons. Among them lay an older woman with a bead in her fist and a blade mark on her rib, and a younger woman with teeth that said, same soil, pelvis scarred from childbirth, bones telling of at least 5 pregnancies before 20. Tests on their maternal DNA matched. Mother and daughter thrown into the same pit, not from sentiment, from speed. The older woman's descendants move in bodies today, the line never stopped. The younger woman's sons were taken, by 1240 they would be men in harness, repeating what made them. Her daughters were sold on and bred in turn. The signatures of these places repeat across the map, stone pads for tents, latrines engineered for hundreds, pits for babies who failed inspection. Bones remember what curated museums and patriotic textbooks refuse to say. Modern governments tiptoe around certain results. In one country the euphemism on lab reports is diversity from the Yuan period, a phrase that means rape left its mark. In another, genetic surveys of villages show a single male line saturating 90% of men, but nobody prints the obvious sentence beneath the graph. Dr. Chen and her peers talk quietly about the scale. The Mongol expansion remixed Eurasia faster than slow time ever could. One generation of policy broke and rebuilt genomes in ways that echo in disease susceptibilities and family trees. You can call it a demographic revolution. She calls it what the data say, assault industrialized. Return, then, to the ledger that opened this story. The ruined mother who clawed at soldiers lived long enough to be processed again and again. Her daughter, dragged past the fallen beads, went into the book as 5 pregnancies between 14 and 21. 3 sons marked and removed for training. 2 daughters sent to secondary facilities. Then a single line, status terminated after repeated failure. A phrase that hides pain a page cannot carry. The sons became officers and earned their own access. The daughters became stock and birthed away their own names. The machine ate every story and spat out numbers, then marched on. 8 centuries later, a woman posts a cheerful screenshot of her ancestry map and the algorithm's badge tied to a con. Her friends reply with fireworks and crown emojis. No one types the sentence beneath the glitter, your line passed through women who had no choice. Another man reads, Genghis Khan, on his report and smiles. He doesn't see the wagon, the tent, the iron smell that never left the floorboards, the blue number that swallowed a name. He doesn't hear a paymaster reading quotas or a doctor counting heartbeats while his hands turn a fetus without mercy. What is left are proofs the world cannot unmake, bones aligned by policy, books filled with entries that never lie, and living bodies, millions, that carry the echo. The quills scratched. The wheels groaned. Babies were weighed by cheekbones and sent toward nurseries or pits. Doctors wrote successes and learned from deaths. Captains traded chips. Spies counted daughters while cities slept. Ledgers closed at night and opened with the sun. The machine kept its time in 6-minute intervals and quarter-end totals. 16 million men walk now with one strand that points back. Their chromosomes are receipts. But it was the uncounted women, the numbered, the traded, the silenced, who paid the price that made those receipts possible. Remember the precision some people praise when they praise that empire. Remember what the precision was for. Remember the mother who reached for her daughter and grasped only air. Remember a bead and a cut rib in a trench. Remember a girl who once tried to anchor herself at dawn by whispering her father's names until those syllables thinned and snapped. The books remain. The graves remain. The living remain. You do not need a courtroom to see the verdict.